thank you for joining us for this second in a series of webinars being delivered jointly by Scottish Golf and our colleagues at the GEO Foundation for Sustainable Golf. Some quick introductions. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Ian McFarlane and I'm a Club Services Officer at Scottish Golf, and I'll be facilitating today's webinar. Thanks to all the clubs and individuals who have taken time out of your schedule to join us for this session. We have a variety of clubs represented in the group, large and small, and we appreciate your interest in this topic. There will be a Q&A session later in the chat where questions that may arise during the presentation can be addressed. If you think of a question as we go along, then please just use the chat function to jot it down, send it in to us, and we can pick it up with the panelists when there's a suitable break or just at the end of the presentation. We're also recording this session, and we definitely are recording this session because we've had problems before, but it's definitely being recorded, and we'll send that out to all the participants and attendees at the end of the session so that you can share it with other members of your club, members of the committee, and just pick up on individual aspects of it. Today's session will once again be led by Robbie Fitzpatrick, Dr. Robbie Fitzpatrick, to give him his full-blown title from the GEO Foundation. Robbie and the GEO team work closely with Scottish Golf to help support clubs and provide best practice guidance in the area of sustainability. The GEO Foundation, for those who are not aware, is an international not-for-profit organisation dedicated to promoting sustainability in and through golf, and that's a vision that's shared by us here at Scottish Golf. I think it's fair to say we're all on a learning curve in this subject, but I think we can agree that sustainability in golf is not only sound for environmental reasons, but it's also a cost-effective strategy for clubs to adopt, and that's principally, I guess, why you're joined this call today. Also joining Robbie is Carolyn Headley. Now, Carolyn is the lead consultant and founder of Eco Impact Sports. She specialises in helping sports to adapt to climate and environmental challenges and to help businesses capitalise on the opportunities that going green can bring. For 15 years, Carolyn was also the Environment and Sustainability Manager with Scottish Golf, so she knows her way around the golfing landscape in Scotland and understands fully the support required by our affiliated clubs in this sphere. Anyway, that's enough from me. I'm going to hand you over now to the experts, to Robbie and to Carolyn, to take you through the presentation. And as I say, if there's any questions, stick them in the chat function and we'll address them as we go along. Robbie, do you want to take control?
Excellent. Thank you, Ian. Hello, everyone, and thank you very much for attending. This is the second webinar in our series on building a sustainable golf club. The first webinar showed that sustainability is integral to operating an efficient business and can generate several benefits in terms of cost savings, participation, and community relations. And this webinar will delve deeper into a specific focus area for golf courses, and that's resource and energy efficiency. We'll begin with a brief introduction to GEO Foundation, and then we'll delve into some of the challenges facing golf clubs in Scotland related to energy and resources. We'll then consider how a golf club can start to plan to address these energy-related challenges. At this point, I'll hand over to Carolyn, who, as Ian said, has over 15 years of experience working in Scottish golf and sustainability, and she'll discuss some of the ways that she thinks that golf clubs can start to save resources and, of course, money at the same time. We'll then delve into some examples of practical initiatives that golf courses are implementing around energy and resources before concluding with some information on the tools and resources and support that are available to you to help you on this journey. Okay, so as Ian mentioned, we are GEO Sustainable Golf Foundation, and we're founded more than 18 years ago and have become really a pioneer in the sport and sustainability movement. Our key mission is to support golf in strengthening and safeguarding the future of the game. And we do that through various tools, strategy, guidance, communications and advocacy for golf developments, golf facilities and also golf tournaments. And all of these programmes are provided through partnerships and participants in over 75 countries around the world. We're very global and international in scope. Okay, so we're going to start quite broadly. We covered some of this in the previous webinar, but we'll run through some of the main energy-related challenges facing golf clubs in Scotland at the moment. Now, climate change is probably the largest energy-related challenge, and of course, it's one of the greatest crises in human history. This climate strip was compiled from the University of Oxford's climate records, which are one of the longest running climate records in the world, and it represents 200 years of global temperature fluctuations. And as you'll see, that mean average annual temperature has significantly increased, and over the last 60 years, it's the warmest on record. This, of course, as the world warms, we're seeing significant changes in weather patterns with impacts that manifest at every single level of a golf business. Focusing particularly on Scotland, we're seeing extreme weather, such as intense periods of rain and drought, which of course leads to flooding of golf courses. The picture in the bottom left was taken from a golf course in Edinburgh over the winter time there, and that course was severely impacted, of course, because that's a fairway that is just entirely waterlogged and underwater. Alongside that, we're seeing sea level rise and coastal erosion. Several links courses, some of their holes are just being completely cut into the ocean, and of course that impacts the business and the ability to get customers onto the course. We're also seeing warmer, wetter winters, and that changes patterns of pest and disease pressure on golf courses. Some pests are emerging earlier in the year, and that leads to challenges for greenkeepers in terms of planning to address those pests and also being able to access the pesticides and the different controls that are available with that ever-changing landscape. And of course, all of this leads to rising operational costs and ever tighter budgets for golf courses as well. There's a real balance to be struck between being able to present playable golf courses and also meet player expectations, which seem to always continue to rise as well. Alongside that, with the operational costs, golf courses are, of course, facing real budgetary challenges. The top left was Holland Bush, which over the last while was faced with imminent closure. They've thankfully managed to save the golf course. But in recent weeks, there have been a number of other examples from within Scotland where clubs are struggling essentially to meet ends meet and to cover their costs while attracting enough members and visitors to maintain the business. Closely aligned to this is the rising cost of energy and fuels. In recent years, and we'll all be aware, there were geopolitical tensions and disruption to supply chains, which caused a spike of energy prices around 2022. Although these energy prices have started to decline from that peak in 2022, the energy price cap, which is established by Ofgem, is rising roughly by 10% this October. And that essentially limits what you pay for each unit of gas and electricity that you use. So that's going to start to rise, and we'll see that impact in our bills. This is rising due to the impact of changing weather patterns on the renewable energy supply, lower stockpiles of gas, and particularly because of a colder winter in Europe this year, and also Russia prioritising higher domestic demand as well. So these climatic changes are having an impact on the prices of our energy and of our fuels. Also into the future, in the longer term, we are very likely to see a rise in energy and fuel prices as extracting them becomes ever more expensive and more difficult as those stocks continue to decline, because of course they're finite resources and we can't recycle or regenerate them, especially the fossil fuels. All of this has organisational impacts on golf courses. This study was conducted on behalf of the R&A by Sport and Insights, and it surveyed around 930 golf courses across the UK and Ireland. And as you'll see on the diagram on the left, those climatic impacts, the flooding, the waterlogging, the rising costs, particularly energy, are all seen as key factors that have impacted golf courses over the last year. On the right-hand side as well, the biggest challenges into the future, we're seeing, again, the operational costs, the high demand from golfers. How do we meet what players expect with ever tighter resources and ever tighter budgets? And that's a massive challenge. And of course, that all leads into the ability to staff golf courses, stress, mental and physical health and well-being of greenkeepers and all that sort of stuff as well. Alongside these challenges, there's also more regulatory and legislative pressure from government. The Paris Climate Agreement was signed and ratified by 196 countries in 2015, and it essentially seeks to limit global warming to well below 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. That crossing that 2 degrees Celsius threshold really risks unleashing far more severe climatic challenges, such as, again, the frequent and severe droughts, storms, floods, etc. That Paris Agreement essentially works on a 5-year cycle in each of these countries that have signed and ratified the agreement. And countries are essentially given 5-year budgets and they have to develop 5-year climate action plans. In Scotland, this is addressed through the Climate Change Emission Reduction Targets Scotland Act 2019. And Scotland has taken or adopted an ambitious target to become net zero by 2045, 5 years ahead of the rest of the UK. And to do that, Scotland, again, meeting that 5-year carbon budget, they will introduce 5-yearly budgets and a climate action plan to coincide with them. And that will include investment in green businesses, households, infrastructure, and jobs. And I think that climate action plan is due to be published this year. So with that overall context in mind, I'm now going to hand over to Carolyn, who can talk through some of the ways that she has seen and expects to see golf courses evolving into the future to try and address some of these challenges.
Hi, thanks so much, Robbie. Can everyone hear me okay? Just double checking. Good. Well, listen, it's really great to be part of this webinar today. And although I can't actually see who's on the call, hopefully I've met a few of you out there in my past, my role with Scottish Golf, or since then as my role as an independent consultant. So before Robbie goes into more detail about energy solutions and case studies, I was asked to jump in at this point to give you some of my insights and experience from my time working with clubs on energy and environmental issues. I think just from what we've heard there about climate change and carbon reductions, these are issues that haven't quite really grasped the priorities and the thinking of clubs yet. But energy saving to reduce costs is very much at the forefront of many club managers' minds and course managers' minds. So this webinar is very apt, and hopefully you'll get a lot of information out of this and a lot of key tips of where to go next for help as well. So in my experience, having worked with many, many clubs across the country of different sizes, different types, there's lots of great progress being made out there in energy management. There's lots of people that have dabbled and made some investments and perhaps not necessarily focused their time or their funds in the right place. And there's a whole host of clubs that haven't really made much of a start apart from just checking their bills and paying their bills and shopping around. So wherever you are, your club is on that kind of journey of becoming more energy efficient. Don't worry, there's plenty of other people in the same place, and there's plenty of support and advice out there to help you get started. So in a nutshell, I think from my experience, I think it's important that before a club launches straight into making changes or investing money, that they really have a think and come up with an energy or resources plan. Having a planned approach is vital, really, to stop, to make sure you don't invest in the wrong way and make some mistakes going forward. As well as energy, also, these kind of ideas also apply to water usage and materials and waste management as well. But just particularly talking about energy management and carbon reduction today, the overall aim really for a club, in my view, is to pay less, then to use less, and also waste less. And at the same time, with that will become reductions in emissions, which will help with overall carbon footprint and help your club support the overall government aims that Robbie's just mentioned there, and help us do our bit as an industry to try and reduce the impacts of the changing climate in the future. So I think really, first of all, if you're starting from scratch, it's really the first step would be to sort of map your usage, really get a good understanding and a good handle on what energy sources and fuels are being used across your facility in which part. And that really just starts by walking around with a notebook and pen and just understanding what equipment you have, what heat sources, what lighting sources, and what fuels are being used. And then really the next big step is to measure your current usage. Data is key in all forms of facility management. So There's a saying that you can only manage what you can measure. So without having that good baseline data, it's very difficult to make good informed decisions going forward. So I would really encourage you all the first step is to analyze your current bills, but looking specifically at quantities, not just on costs. A lot of clubs, in my experience, are getting quarterly bills coming in and they're paying them, and perhaps shopping around every now and again for getting different tariffs, but not really having a good understanding of the quantities, the kilowatt hours or the meters cubed or the litres of fuel that are being used. So properly analysing those bills is really the first step. It's not easy. I'm working with some clubs at the moment, and the bills are quite difficult sometimes to understand. Every supplier has a different way of doing it. So it may be an idea to even just contact your supplier and ask for some annual data going back a year or so as a good start, so you can understand exactly how much you're using. Looking at the data monthly is important. So submitting monthly or weekly or daily rather than quarterly is very important. So making sure you're actually submitting accurate regular readings, or making sure you've got a smart meter installed, is important to get good accurate data, because so many clubs just have estimated bills, and then every now and again someone comes and reads a meter and reconciles it. So having good accurate readings that you've done yourself is important. Another tip is to try and, if you haven't already, which is quite possible, have a look at getting some sub-meters installed across the facility, so you get an understanding of the different energy use in different departments, whether it's the kitchens and the bar, the restaurant side, the catering side, or if it's the changing rooms or the office, or out on the course, the maintenance facility. Often clubs will maybe just have 1 meter for the whole facility, or perhaps 2, one for the clubhouse and one for the golf course, which is a good start. But having more sub-meters is very important to get a good understanding of where your energy is being used. And then tracking that energy usage, your quantities, and having a look and see where the anomalies are, any spikes or any low usage or any high usage, and trying to justify that, whether it's tracking it against weather conditions. Obviously in the colder weather, the heating's going up, or the hotter weather, you might have air conditioning perhaps, or more water's being used, therefore more pumps are being used to pump irrigation or abstraction pumps. So there's usually a reason why you have spikes in your usage graphs, but sometimes you might not be able to identify them, and that might be something that's being left on, or something that's being used that you're not aware of. So looking for those anomalies is important. One thing to do is perhaps do an experiment on a quiet day, switch everything off, every bit of equipment, and then have a look at the meter and see if it's still turning around, and you'll find out what's been left on that you're not aware of, where energy is perhaps being wasted. And also checking for nighttime usage. In my experience, a lot of clubs have a lot of things left on standby or left switched on overnight. Obviously freezers and fridges often need to be left on, but lots of things can be switched off and taken off standby, which can instantly save a huge amount of energy. So once you've got all that good data and a really good understanding of where your usage is, you can start to use that to focus some actions and think about where the biggest benefits will be, and also set some targets as well. And all that can be put into a plan. So you're looking, first of all, the first quick hit would be to pay less. So I'm sure most of you already are shopping around. I know we do it in our homes. We hopefully change tariffs or change suppliers regularly to get the best deals. And it's tricky business, obviously, with the way the energy prices are going at the moment. There's no good quick fix or quick answers to whether to fix energy prices or to go variable. But you can get lots of advice from energy brokers, or look into group buying schemes. I'm not sure if Scottish Golf still have those group buying opportunities with other golf clubs to get the best deals and get the best tariffs. When you are shopping round, it's from looking at the carbon emissions side, it'd be very good to try and get onto tariffs that are 100% renewable energy for the electricity. And often a lot of gas tariffs also offset their gas emissions, which is quite good. So that's done at source, just to be a bit more sustainable, a bit more supportive of emission targets as well. So it's not just about the money in the tariff, it's about where the energy source is coming from. So once you know you're paying less for your current usage, the big task then in part of your plan is to use less and waste less. So Robbie's going to go into some good examples about this, but I think the kind of key areas to look at, and the kind of key, in my experience, the order to do things is to look at the quick hits first. So that's things like behavioural changes, which might involve some staff training or some signage perhaps for switching things off, or making sure people are not leaving things on standby. But behavioural changes are a good way of making some big savings straight away. Making sure you're optimising the use of any equipment and machinery in the right way. For example, out in the golf course and the greenkeepers, rather than lots of different trips out to different areas of the course to plan their routes. I'm sure the greenkeepers and the head course managers usually are quite good at mapping out the route around the course as well. Things like charging, if any equipment needs charging, to do it overnight if you have a nighttime lower tariff as well. And also wider than just energy, looking at your materials and your waste and your water and your purchasing, any things you're purchasing, thinking about it in a sustainable way, buying more locally to reduce delivery emissions, which is all part of your club's footprint. Everything you buy in is part of your footprint, and looking at just reducing fuel use that way. Car sharing to events, if you've got teams that are all traveling together, to try and car share as well to reduce on fuel use. So once those kind of quick hits of behavioural changes and optimising what you currently have, the next kind of step is to look at sort of smaller investments, things like controls, sensors, timers, dimmer switches, things like that, that will just reduce the amount of energy that's wasted, especially in lighting, and some heating as well, and having good timers so things aren't coming on when the clubhouse is quiet or empty, things like that. After you've done your behavioural changes and your controls, the next step really is for investing in upgrading to more efficient equipment. So you're looking at A-star graded equipment, whether it's computers, fridges, freezers, looking at the most efficient things if you're buying new. And then also around the clubhouse and the maintenance facility, lighting, LED lighting, which LEDs, if you haven't already switched, use 80% less energy than a normal bulb, and are supposed to last 6 or 7 years longer. That's jury's still out about that one, but LEDs are definitely the way. That's a quick hit at relatively low expense, depending on how many bulbs you're replacing. It is probably more cost effective to do the LED replacement as a project and do them all, rather than just waiting for each bulb to pop and then buying individual or new ones. To do a program replacement is quite a more efficient way, more economical way to do it. So you've got your lighting, your heating, and of course your insulation as well. Insulation, we always say, if it's cold outside, put a hat on first. So stop the heat escaping, and you'll be able to turn your thermostat down a couple of notches as well. And then efficient machinery. In the greenkeeping world, there's a lot more hybrid and electric machinery, which generally uses less fuel and less carbon emissions. So your head greenkeepers will no doubt be on top of the new technologies that are available for the course equipment and machinery. So once you've done all those kind of steps, I say Robbie will go into lots of good examples there about clubs that have already addressed those new upgrades and new projects across the course and the clubhouse. But in my opinion, the last step really is to look at alternative sources, looking at smaller scale renewables. Just as an anecdote, I do know of a club, which will remain nameless, that in the past didn't do any of the steps in advance, so just sized and estimated the number of solar panels to put on the roof on their current usage. And since they installed them at quite a big expense, they then did lots of efficiency measures afterwards. So now they've oversized. So if you do all the efficiency measures first, get your usage down as low as it can comfortably be, and at that point you know your numbers and you can start looking at small scale renewables. So obviously solar panels, there are micro turbines or larger wind turbines that some clubs have or worked with other suppliers to rent out a portion of their land, and they get a kickback from those energy producers. There's a lot of talk in the government about heat pumps, whether it's air source heat pumps or ground source heat pumps. These can be amazing and great in certain circumstances, but they only really, in reality, they only really work on modern airtight buildings, and many of our old clubhouses need to be able to breathe, so they're not always going to be suitable for air source heat pumps. Perhaps maintenance sheds might be a more applicable place to put them. I wouldn't rule them out completely, but I think if you are going to be going down that route, definitely get some good independent advice, not just from somebody that's trying to sell you the air source heat pump. Definitely go for some independent advice. So yeah, lots of opportunities in the future for renewables. District heating, I know there are some clubs, not in Scotland, and some sort of leisure centres and sporting facilities that are getting excess heat from nearby industries, breweries, and their pools are getting heated. So there's a lot of exciting stuff going on in renewable energy that hopefully golf will be able to get involved in the future. So let's think. So behavioural changes, control sensors, upgrading your equipment, and then looking at alternative sources, and making sure you communicate all these things you're doing with your members and other stakeholders, because you never know, there might be someone in your membership that's skilled in these areas or has contacts and can really help you move things forward. There's lots of external help available, which I know Robbie's going to discuss a few things, and there is government funding. Not as much as there used to be, unfortunately, but there are some incentives to really become as efficient as possible. And I think the time is now. There's no point really waiting. Just if you go for it as soon as you can, become as efficient as possible, because I'm not sure if energy prices are going to be coming down anytime soon at all, and you never know what's going to happen with the world energy markets. We'll just have to wait and see. So that's my kind of thoughts. If that's all right, Robbie, to pass back to you. I think you'll go into a bit more detail of some examples. But yeah, hopefully that's a few insights from my experience of the kind of the way to get started and the kind of the order things should be looked at when you're looking at your energy management. All right.
Thank you very much, Carolyn. Really appreciate your insights. And totally
Robbie,
agree.
over to you.
Perfect, thank you. Yeah, thank you very much for your insights, Carolyn. Totally agree on the baselining, and we'll come to the baselining at the end of the towards the end of the webinar, and also with the plan. I think it's so important to have a strategic plan, and part of what we do at GEO Foundation is distill sustainability into very practical themes and action areas for golf facilities to tackle some of these challenges. Now, in the first webinar, we introduced the Sustainable Golf Framework, which has the 3 priority areas of nature, resources, and community. And when it comes to resources and energy, just like Carolyn was saying, it's so important to get the quick wins out of the way. So how can you actually reduce your need for using energy at all? When you do need to apply energy, how can you use it as efficiently as possible? And then, as Carolyn says, after those steps, you look at sustainable sourcing and how you can prioritize renewable and regeneratable sources. So when it comes to reduced needs on the golf course, we're really looking at things like trying to get some native vegetation in, making sure it's not going to require as much maintenance and mowing, reducing that maintained area as much as possible, and then electric machinery and tools if you're able to invest in those at your golf facility. At the maintenance facility in the clubhouse, we're looking at things like passive design. So taking away the need to actually have heating and lighting by strategically designing the clubhouse in ways where it doesn't need to draw on these external sources. As Carolyn said, conducting an audit, going around with a notepad and picking up different pieces of projects and ways that you can plan to enhance your conservation, and then also greener transport methods as well. So we'll run through some examples from golf courses that have implemented some of these measures and the financial savings that they've made. So as I mentioned, when you take maintained area out of play, you're going to save a significant amount of fuel and a significant amount of money that's required to buy the machinery and the fuels that are needed to operate that machinery. So this golf course in Finland essentially took 10 hectares out of maintained rough out of play, and save around €5,000 a year from the reduction in fuel. Something as simple as mowing patterns as well. So moving maybe from the kind of crisscross diamond pattern into a more simple up and down motion over the course of a year, that can save a significant amount of fuel. This golf course in the Netherlands saved around 594 litres and cut their CO2 emissions by around 1,600 kilograms. So really simple, quick win there in terms of mowing patterns, and something to think about. Again, that electric machinery will save a significant amount of fuel over the long term. It may have an upfront capital cost, but you will start to see that paying back over the years. Royal Liverpool, they're saving around £7,000 annually by investing in pedestrian mowers, triples, and utility vehicles as well. As I mentioned, passive design of clubhouses. So looking at things like this golf course added a greenhouse, and that provides the heating and the lighting, so they're not actually having to draw on their boilers or run those through gas and electricity. They're actually using the natural environment, using the sunlight to strategically heat the clubhouse. And they also invested in additional lockers and encouraged more golfers to arrive by bicycle as well. I know of some clubs that offer incentives on membership fees if the golfers are using bicycles or public transport to get there. So these are really kind of, again, simple measures that have a significant impact on climate change and those climate targets that we're all striving to meet. Also looking at investment in electric chargers to encourage more electric vehicle adoption. Golf courses are places where people spend a significant amount of time, usually kind of 3 to 5 hours per round. So that's a good amount of time to charge an electric vehicle. And again, I know of some golf courses whose car parks are used as overflow, and people for kind of transport hubs, so people can park their cars there, charge them while they're playing golf, or maybe while they're in the town, and then they can come back, collect them, and take them elsewhere. When it comes to efficiency, as Carolyn mentioned, the main source of electricity and cost on a golf course is the irrigation system and the pumps required to operate those irrigation systems. And then in the maintenance facility and clubhouse, we're looking at things like heating, lighting, and efficient appliances. So this golf course invested in a variable frequency converter, which basically means the pump is operating at optimum times to get the best rates on electricity. So it's kind of a smart pump almost. And they're saving around 20% on their energy consumption by investing in that technology. Again, as Carolyn mentioned, investing in efficient appliances, so boilers, air conditioning, LED lighting, motion sensors, insulation, and also this club had solar panels on, which we'll touch on later. They're saving around £8,000 a year. So again, they may have an upfront capital cost, but that will start to pay back over time, and then you'll start saving money into the future. LEDs can have a significant impact on cost savings also. So this club conducted an audit, highlighted that if they converted all their LEDs or all their halogen spotlights to LEDs, they're saving around £2,500. So again, that's a really quick win for your golf facility. And then we come on to source responsibly. So we're looking on the golf course around on-site resources and reusing and recycling as much as possible. And then in the built environment, we're looking at things like micro-renewables, switching to greener tariffs, and also looking at sustainable procurement and waste management as well, to cut the amount of cost that you're spending on buying in resources and trying to keep the value in the supply chain of the club. So looking at things like on-site turf nurseries, so Bankery, they basically had some spare land. They created their own turf nursery, and that essentially saved around £4,250 in buying the turf grass in and also hauling it from England up to Scotland. So again, immediate cost savings for the club and also good for the climate as well, by reducing those CO2 emissions. More and more clubs are looking at finding on-site sources of sand as well. I know a lot of clubs are building sand scrapes and things which enhance the character of the golf course and also provide a sustainable supply for them. So Royal Liverpool, they were spending around £160,000 every year to buy sand, but they instead created sand scrapes, which cost around 20,000 to build and then about 2,000 to screen the sand. So if you do your maths, they're saving around £132,000 by just sourcing that sand on site and screening it on site. And you also think again about the CO2 that's required to mine that sand and then transport it to their golf club as well. And then, as Carolyn said, moving towards micro renewables. Omberg, this is a pretty extreme example, but they are totally energy self-sufficient. I think they've got 3 wind turbines on their golf course, and they also have geothermal heating and light in their clubhouse. So they're totally off grid. They're probably the best that I've ever come across in terms of self-sufficiency around energy. But for kind of regular golf courses, well, again, solar panels. If you can get some solar panels on your buildings, that saves spending fossil fuels, paying for your electricity, because it's all being provided naturally for you. And this club are saving around €5,000 a year by installing those solar panels. And then also sustainable purchasing, sustainable procurement. So as Carolyn said, and I know Scottish Golf still offer, I think it's a bulk buy scheme. So if you buy things in bulk, you're going to get a cheaper price. And then this club basically used that cost saving to ensure that there was no green fee rises for their members. So when you're cutting that cost, you're able to invest that in other areas of the golf club. So even if it's the naturalisation efforts, by reducing your needs, you can then take that cost and invest it in efficient equipment, or you can also let that filter into membership fees and things like that, which helps with participation and engaging the community and all that sort of thing. So just to really summarise, again, we mentioned this in the previous webinar, the energy efficiency is really, it makes economic sense and it makes business sense to do this sort of thing. And when we do this environmental stuff, it helps the club and it helps the community and it helps the economy and the business as well. So for a golf club, energy efficiency helps to mitigate climate change, which in turn helps to future-proof your business because it's reducing the risk of all these storms, floods, droughts, etc. You're going to get short and long-term returns on investment on a lot of these projects. So although you've taken an initial capital hit, they will pay back over the longer term. You can add a more modern imaging culture to your golf club. So, for instance, a club with the greenhouse, that's just lovely to sit out and it's lovely to look at, and it helps you to market your club in a new and innovative way. There's also new staff skills and benefits through a lot of these projects. I know working with some greenkeepers, they love the electric equipment because it's quieter, there's less vibration. The golfers love it because, again, it's quieter, there's less disruption to play. There's a lot of benefits in upskilling that can be gained through a lot of these technologies. And then, as I say, healthier, quieter playing and working environments as well because we're using that cleaner energy. And then at the end of all this, you can also start to gain recognition as a sustainable golf club, and that has a number of business and marketing benefits for you as well. So we will now turn to tools and support for golf clubs around energy. So we've got all these projects. How can we, as a golf club, start to implement some of these, and what support is there to help you? So as Carolyn mentioned, the first port of call is to establish a baseline. What is your current energy consumption? Where are you using the most energy, and where can you start to find efficiencies? And to do that, it's really important to get that baseline understanding of where you are. So we haven't touched on course in these webinars yet, but essentially at GEO Foundation, we offer a free sustainability reporting platform, which allows you to monitor and record your consumption of energy and other sustainability parameters. So that platform is totally free to sign up to, and we'll provide links at the end of this webinar. And through OnCourse, you can also generate a free sustainable golf scorecard and carbon footprint, which we essentially have carbon models that we work with, and we can essentially give you a footprint. It will identify exactly where your emissions are coming from. It will also estimate how much carbon your landscape is taking in through the vegetation, and that'll essentially provide you with a carbon balance. And alongside that, we'll also provide a climate action plan directly tailored for golf clubs. And all of this is free to access, so you can get that baseline through us at GEO for no cost at all. This is an example carbon footprint. So that can be trended over a number of years. As you can see, this golf course decreased their carbon footprint over time. We're able to identify that top dressing was the largest part of their carbon footprint. And that also has a breakdown of your different energy sources as well. So this golf course essentially switched to a greener tariff, which helped them to reduce their overall carbon footprint. So the top left here is their overall, and that went down over time. And it went down because they switched over to that greener energy tariff, which has less carbon included in the supply and generation of that energy. This is an example of the sequestration that we can calculate for your golf facility. So providing us with different, how your land is constructed, what areas of different landscapes and habitats do you have on your land. We can then estimate how much carbon is being pulled in. So as you can see from this golf course, non-native woodland is making up the large majority of their sequestration. And then together, by subtracting the emissions from the sequestration, we can work out if your course is carbon positive, carbon negative, or net zero. After you've got that baseline, as Carolyn mentioned, it's really important to conduct an audit. So you know where you're at, you know what your consumption is, what can we do to improve? And again, there are a number of resources available for you. OnCourse, that sustainability platform that's totally free, provides a comprehensive checklist of best practices for energy and other areas of sustainability. And these have been developed and maintained by global experts over a number of years. We also offer the Sustainable Golf Highlights Hub, which you can access. It's totally open source. And that's where I pulled all of those highlights from. So essentially, clubs will submit examples of what they're doing at their golf club, how they've did it, and what the benefits have been. And there are thousands of examples on there for you. And again, totally free to access to get some ideas. The Scottish Golf website is also a great resource. That document you can see on the right-hand side of the screen, they offer that, which was compiled by the home unions, the R&A, and different associations within the golf industry. And that basically collected their smarts and provided a kind of top 10 list of practices that golf clubs can implement to save energy and money. Scottish Golf also have a partnership with Juice, who are LED lighting specialists, and they can also provide energy audits for you that are usually free of charge. So well worth having a look at them. And then one of the key resources in Scotland are Business Energy Scotland. Their website provides an energy audit checklist. They also have an online course for you to work through, and also provide a number of templates, plans, and documents on saving resources across your heating, lighting, and waste management as well. Once you've done that audit, it's then important to look for support. Is there any funding or advice that's really available for you to start to implement these different projects that you identified? Now, Business Energy Scotland offer a free energy opportunities assessment. So they'll basically, it might be online, or they might get someone out to your facility, and they'll basically look for different opportunities around your golf course. Where can you look to save money? What are the quick wins? What are the longer term projects? And then once you've had that free energy opportunities assessment, you're then able to apply to the SME loan scheme. And that's essentially a Scottish Government backed loan up to £100,000 with potential for 30,000 cash back. And that is, you're eligible to use that money for any of the opportunities that were identified in that Business Energy Scotland assessment. So if they identified any key areas for your golf club to look into, that loan can be used to address that and to implement that project. Findbusinesssupport.gov.scot is, again, the Scottish Government's directory of funding opportunities. That doesn't just cover energy, that's anything, any pots of funding that the Scottish Government are currently offering are all available, and you can search for them on that website. And there are also a number of peer-to-peer learning platforms. So the Scottish Business Climate Collaboration, that has a number of case studies from businesses across Scotland and how they're working towards energy conservation and wider sustainability benefits. So again, well worth looking on there. And also Zero Waste Scotland, who provides best practice guidance, again, around resources, energy, waste, and they'll also pinpoint you out to government support as well. There's a number of different sources of support for you as a golf course to tap into, and a lot of them are free and readily available for you. And Carolyn, if you want to jump in here and
yeah, just to add to that list, another one that I've just thought of there for listed or old buildings, which many of our clubhouses are. There could be some planning constraints and specific advice required for installing energy efficient solutions. So Historic Environment Scotland have some great guidance. I don't have the link to hand. I can always send that through to Robbie to distribute. But if you just Google historicenvironment.scot and then search for their listed building energy efficiency, the guidance is all there last time I looked. So historicenvironment.scot. That's another website to have a look at if your building is particularly old.
That's excellent. Thank you, Carolyn. And we'll send out all these links to you in a follow-up email following this webinar, along with the recording as well. So we will pass all of these on to you. And then finally, just to close on some next steps that you can take, some simple actions that you can take following this webinar. You can use the QR code on the right-hand side to sign up to OnCourse if you haven't already joined. Again, that provides those best practice checklists to support your audit, and you can also generate that free sustainable golf scorecard and carbon footprint to establish your baseline. You can also access materials and examples, as I said, at the Highlights Hub on the Scottish Golf website as well. I know they have some case studies and things around energy. And then just to mention about future webinars, we'll get 3 more in the series. The next one will look at climate resilience. How do we address some of the flooding, the coastal erosion and all that sort of thing. We'll also look at community engagement, and we'll delve deeper into the sustainability tools and programs that we offer at GEO as well. And with that, I will close. Thank you very much for everyone's time. I think we can turn to any questions, Ian, if there were any submitted to the chat.
Yep. Thanks, Robbie. Thanks, Carolyn, for the information. Sometimes in the area of sustainability, it can seem like information overload. There's lots of websites to look at, lots of new processes to try and take on board. But as Robbie said, the recording of the interview and all the links that we've spoken about in this session will be freely available at the end. Just pick up a couple of things. I think Carolyn mentioned about buying groups and how important they could be. Golf clubs can have access to a company called Golf Management Group that provide discounts basically for bulk buying and things like waste management, things like energy, insurance, etc. Again, that's a link that we have on the Scottish Golf website, and I'll include that in any follow-up conversations that we have. We're also happy to say that at Scottish Golf, we have 6 regional development managers now in place, or 5 are in place. 1 is coming on board very shortly. Again, if there's conversations that golf clubs want to have specifically with Scottish Golf on this subject, or those things that you think about later once this webinar's finished, then just contact us at clubsupport@scottishgolf.org, and we can put you in touch with development managers that'll be able to have conversations with you on this subject, and also point you to Robbie and the team at GEO if you want to have specific conversations with them. I think just from our point of view, Robbie, the OnCourse platform that you spoke about there is probably the best place for clubs to start. If they haven't already carried out energy audits and they're not quite sure about how much energy they're burning and how efficient their golf club and associated factors with that golf club are, then that's probably the best place to start. As you mentioned, that's freely available to all affiliated Scottish golf clubs, as well as the carbon footprint and sustainable golf scorecard. So that's probably the best place. If clubs haven't already done it, that's the best place to start. Just one from me as I was going along there, Robbie. I mean, sustainability is such a huge topic. Is it something that golf clubs should look at in terms of having somebody specifically on a committee looking at sustainability? You know, golf clubs have it with finance, they have the house committee, you've got a greens committee. Is there somebody who at the golf club you would say should be responsible for looking at sustainability because it's such a big and important subject?
Absolutely. Again, I think sustainability sometimes gets associated with just the golf course or just habitat, but it's really a big picture concept, and it's about, again, operating an efficient business. And there's so many aspects to that. It's important to have a really consolidated approach and to have someone to lead that. And we find that at GEO, the clubs that are really engaged with our programs and are able to get through them, they tend to have someone in place. That could be a sustainability manager, it could be a head of a sustainability committee, the head of a greens committee, just to pull everything together and to work with the greenkeeper and to make that connection with the club manager, to make that connection with the golf course owner, because it's really a collaborative movement. So it involves different stakeholders across the golf course. I think it's so important to have someone to lead that. And even if it is a volunteer position, we get a lot of clubs going successfully through our programs just with a volunteer or a group of volunteers leading that, and we are here to support. So even if you are hesitant about becoming a sustainability volunteer, we at GEO are here to help you, and we can guide you along the way. We have a lot of guidance, we have a lot of support, we have a lot of resources that can help you to create that role and to allow that to develop moving forward as well.
Carolyn, this question is maybe best aimed at you, given your previous experience with Scottish Golf. But when you're trying to, if a golf club committee has the ideas on sustainability and want to drive it forward, how do you take the members with you on that journey? Because sometimes it can be something that's met with a bit of scepticism, and it can be quite difficult to pass on the details to the ordinary membership.
Yeah, I think it's a tricky one, really. Having good communication from the very beginning, even just telling the members that you're considering looking at this, because there's often quite skilled people within the membership from their previous or current careers, or people that are just interested in getting involved. So trying to take the membership with you from the beginning is important. But obviously, you don't necessarily want to tell everybody everything as you're going along. You might want to wait till some good results have come about and you can promote it better. But yes, making sure everyone's aware that you are looking at energy efficiency, and when you have made some savings, promote it and shout about it to say what you're doing with those savings, how you're reinvesting them, or even just to show that you're making improvements, that you're providing value for money for their membership fees as well. So yes, good communication is key. Having sustainability updates within newsletters or on the website is good. Having making AGM reports and things like that, making sure any kind of good achievements are highlighted is important. But yeah, it's a tricky one, but yeah, making sure everyone's communicated well is important. So.
Yeah, makes perfect sense, Carolyn. Thank you. Okay, don't have any more questions in the chat function. If anyone's got something they want to ask, then speak now or forever hold your peace. If there's something you think about post-meeting, then, as I say, feel free to contact us here at Scottish Golf through clubsupport@scottishgolf.org, and we can either put you in touch with the regional development manager or somebody at GEO, somebody in Robbie's team who would be able to give you one-to-one advice. If that's it, I'll just end the session. Thank you for attending. Many thanks to Robbie and Carolyn for their input and sharing the knowledge. You can contact us at Scottish Golf on that email address that I provided, and all the recordings and links to all the other organisations that have been flagged up in the webinar will also be sent on post-session. I'll just take this extra chance to plug Scottish Golf's regional roadshows, which have been led by the club services team. These are coming to a venue near you from next week. Sessions in Tain, Nairn, Newmarket, Ladybank, Cochrane Castle, Thornhill and Newbattle. So there's not a part of the country that we're not touching. So again, if you want to come and speak to us face to face at the regional roadshows, you are more than welcome. And the details on these can be found on the Scottish Golf website. Just get in touch and you can book your place at one or more of these sessions if you want to. Okay, that's all for this latest webinar with the GEO Foundation for Sustainable Golf. Hope you enjoyed it. Look out for more details of follow-up webinars to come in the weeks ahead. But for now, thanks for attending, and see you all soon.